I don't think it's like hardcore porno, but they don't have the same moral Puritan disposition we do.
Well, I think that German lady who opened the first sex shop, one of her dolls was the precursor to Barbie. Barbie was a German sex doll before she was remade into a girl's fashion doll.
They took the nipples and the vagina off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back today with another podcast. We're going to talk about something that's really important these days. Everybody's talking about sexuality, gender, things like this. We've got Professor Gayle V. Fischer. She's a professor of history at Salem University, Salem State in Massachusetts. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
I prepared some questions because I know that everybody's polarized about some of these issues, and so we want to talk about it, see if we can come to some rational, logical conclusion. So I'll just start right off. You have written a lot about the topics of gender and sexuality. What was your academic journey? What led you to want to study sexuality and all that fun stuff?
Well, my journey is actually quite long and quite convoluted. As an undergraduate, I was a theater major. But not in acting. I was a technology costume design major. And so I was going to have a life in the theater. And I got accepted into a program at Yale University in costume technology. So I went there and I realized that maybe the theater wasn't what I wanted to do. But all I had done since high school was theater and costuming, and I didn't know what else to do. So I thought really hard about classes that I liked when I was an undergraduate. And I remembered I liked my women's history classes. So I decided, well, I'll go ahead and get my master's degree in women's history. And at that time, we're talking early 80s. There were only two women's history programs in the country. One was a PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the other was Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York. So I got accepted at Sarah Lawrence and got a master's degree in women's history, finished it, and realized there's not a whole lot you can do with master's degree in women's history. So I moved to New York City and worked at various costume shops, theaters, dabbled, took classes at different universities trying to decide what it was I wanted to do. Ultimately, I decided I wanted to get my PhD in history. And I forgot to mention that my thesis at Sarah Lawrence was the National Dress Reform Association. And the more I read what real historians, I use that in quotation marks, what real historians were writing about clothing, the more I understood that having been in theater and having made period dress, having to teach actors and actresses how to move in period dress, I understood clothing better than most historians who only read about it. So I thought perhaps I had something to contribute to history. Most costume historians at the time were either in theater departments or art history or sociology. Very few regular historians. So they went to Indiana University. It was fortunate that Joan Hoff, who became my dissertation director, supported my project in examining dress reform, which in U.S. women's history in the 19th century, you cannot do suffrage, you cannot do women's rights in mid-19th century U.S. history without addressing the bloomer. And everyone got it wrong.
What's the bloomer for everybody that doesn't know?
Okay. Pardon?
What is the bloomer for everybody that doesn't know?
Well, the bloomer is named after Amelia Bloomer, who was a women's rights activist in the 1840s, 1850s in upstate New York, which is where the women's rights movement began with Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And Amelia Bloomer, shortened her dress, let's say about 12 inches off the ground, maybe, I don't think it was as high as 18, maybe as high as 18, and put on a pair of trousers underneath. It actually weren't really trousers. I suspect that what she wore were two legs that were not attached to one another the way pants are attached. So you put on one leg, tied at the waist, put on the other leg, tied at the waist. But it looked like trousers beneath her skirt. And these became known as bloomers. Somebody in a New York newspaper making fun of her and her name called them bloomers. So today the word bloomer is sometimes used for any kind of pants that are gathered, are very full, gathered at the ankle, very feminine. Sometimes they're used for people call them gym costumes. Gym uniforms are often called bloomers, but they all stem from Amelia Bloomer and her first pair of pants. So, but they, this moment, and it was just really a moment for the women's rights movement, lasting for most of them less than a year. All historians who looked at this looked at the women's rights movement, had to address this moment because it got so much press, much more press than actual people wearing women wearing pants. But satirists in newspapers, there were just the cartoons that came out of this. Just exploded. And if you're doing women's history of this moment, of the women's rights movement, these images are irresistible because they show women as being very masculine. The moment women put on pants, and this always irked me, the moment women put on pants, they become the absolute worst of men. Even though it's only a small, like I said, 18 to 12 inches of pants are visible. Everything else is still what they would normally wear. And poor Susan B. Anthony, she was not an attractive woman to begin with. And when she wore them, she was really humiliated in the press. She was crying to Lucy Stone. Lucy Stone, on the other hand, very attractive and was quite, I guess, cute in the outfit. Susan B. Anthony's crying to Lucy Stone. I can't bear to wear this American costume. That's the press called it bloomers. It's been known by a number of things. American costume was one of its names. I can't bear to wear this. It's just like everyone is looking at what I'm wearing and not listening to what I'm saying. And she's talking about voting and more liberal divorce laws and equal rights for women, because they're not listening to me. They're just looking at me and making fun of me. And so she, as did most of the women, stopped wearing the costume after a few years, if they wore it that long. And so I said there, so when women's historians, they all, even if it's just a paragraph, you have to refer to this moment. It's just too juicy not to. They were getting it wrong. And they realized one of the big things they were getting wrong was that they thought this was sort of an anomaly. This was just this quirky little moment that women's rights activists got involved with. The press, blew up and then it died. But in fact, as I began digging, I found out that there was so much more to dress reform and so much more to women wearing pants than just this women's rights quirky moment. So then I wrote my dissertation and I continued to explore this. And I'm looking at women wearing pants in the 19th century. There were a variety of dress reform movements. Some were couched in women's rights, some were in health reform. There were even Seventh-day Adventists. Ellen G. White, the leader of Seventh-day Adventists, had a vision that the Adventist sisters were supposed to wear this costume, but they soon experienced what Susan B. Anthony experienced. Nobody's listening to what they're saying. They're looking at their clothing. Or Seventh-day Adventist women, in wearing the costume, felt like it was a way to demonstrate how deep their faith was, because it was a real trial, it was a real pain. I mean, painful. Not because they were uncomfortable, but painful because of the way people responded to them to wear this. And if they continued to wear it, they were proving that they had the faith. And so Ellen G. White had another vision where God told her, lose the state. But so I found myself discovering these women over the United States, often very small groups or individual women. But no matter what the reasons for wearing it, they were always associated with the women's rights. They were always called bloomers. Like they could not let that original sensation of Amelia Bloomer and the women's rights activists. But even more important was everyone saw men. When women put on bloomers, we'll call them bloomers for the sake of differentiating them from what men were wearing, because they were not, again, the dresses were below, their dresses were below the knees, often mid-calf. So you only saw maybe 10 inches, 18 inches worth of trouser, leg below their dresses. But everyone saw men. And when they were the drawings depicting them in newspapers and in magazines, all showed them essentially wearing men's clothing, not what they were really wearing. And so this whole thing is about gender, right? What does a man look like? What does a woman look like? What can a woman wear? What can a man wear? And when there were some women who did dress in men's clothes, but continued to identify as women. They they insisted that they were women and that they wore men's clothes because it was more comfortable. Although we can't get into the whole comfort issue. But then I also find women dressing as men and passing as men, some to serve in the armed forces, some to get jobs, some possibly because they were attracted to women, although it's difficult to pull that kind of language out of most 19th century sources. So clothing led me to, you can't talk about clothing without talking about gender. And then clothing and sexuality are also so closely tied together. I was just following my sources where they were taking me. And so that's how I ended up gender, sexuality, and dress. I still consider myself primarily a historian of clothing. But that doesn't get you jobs. So.
Sure. I mean, it's all very, very relatable in that way. And I find it funny that the men who might have been outraged in the 19th century were the same ones wearing powdered wigs in the 18th century. And if you ask me, that's a little effeminate.
Clothing, this is true across all time, and historians very, very seldom say anything is true across all time and all places. But gendered clothing, whether we can see that in the 21st century, see the distinctions easily. Every people everywhere have always had women's dress, men's dress. They may, we say that everyone wears T-shirts. Maybe women always wear V-neck T-shirts and men always wear crew neck T-shirts, right? There's some distinction, some gender distinction, all times and all places. When everyone's wearing gowns, some distinctions so that you know it's a woman, you know it's a man.
Right.
By what they're wearing.
How boring is that?
And it drives people crazy when they can't tell. It drives people crazy if they can't tell if someone is a woman or a man. And so it's when you bring the 18th century up, women are wearing powdered wigs. Women are also wearing, and men are wearing heavily embroidered jackets and heavily embroidered shoes and stockings. But women are wearing gowns. They're very similar, yet different. You still know which is the woman and which is the man. Dresses, you don't get away from gowns for women.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it boring. I don't know. And the other thing I wanted, this goes on to I'm going to skip the question, is that the impracticality of women's clothing too versus the practicality of men's clothing. They have always had multiple different pockets. Women's clothes, which I went to the thrift store and I'd have to pick out women's clothes because everybody in America is so oversized these days that the only thing that fit me would be ladies' clothes. Well, there's no pockets in these things. So what's the origin of pants without pockets and things like high heel shoes?
Well, it's really, what's the origin of pockets? Because women used to wear, pockets used to be a separate garment, if you will. Women had pockets, not really that different from an apron that tied around their waists. And often their dresses would have openings in the seams so that they could reach inside the dress into this tied-on pocket to access. Or the pockets could be elaborately, depending on where a woman was and what her social rank was. If you're out on the street, you don't want your pocket too visible because it might be where you're carrying your money. And so you don't want to be a victim of theft. So that's why it would be worn underneath. But around the house, you would wear your pocket over on your dress and keep your like needles and whatever things you might need to, for working around the house would be in these pockets, and they would come in different sizes. And there are a couple of historians in UK who are arguing that some historians have argued that the pocket evolved into the purse, right? So that once the pocket essentially stopped being attached to the woman and became a separate item. But they've shown, and I think quite convincingly, that the pocket, as a pocket, continues to exist even after purses are invented. But I think that contributes to the reason why women's pants weren't necessarily seen as needing pockets, having the separate pocket, but also women's pants, remember, evolve. If their origin is the bloomer, we can accept women in pants as long as they're not wearing men's pants. Men's pants have pockets. Well, it takes a long time. I was going to say it takes a long time for women wearing pants to get accepted. I mean, when Hillary Clinton was running for president, her pantsuits got a lot of flip, right? I mean, that's their pantsuits. So there's still arenas where, women in pants are, but so we have to make it acceptable, we have to make them unlike men's as possible. And pockets. And then we can also talk about the silhouette, right? Stuff in pockets, it really affects the look.
The contour.
Exactly. We just made our female silhouette with our hands there too. We talked about exactly. You don't want that bulging wallet, on your butt if you. This is.
I don't like her. She's way too lumpy.
I find it's funny that you're talking about why aren't there pockets in pants, and yet leggings have become so popular when essentially tights or pantyhose without feet. And I'm like, the generation I grew up with, it's like, you're exposing a little bit too much. You should wear, something that covers that waist to crotch area. But now women freely wear what it's called athleisure now. What used to be clothing you would wear in the gym, they now wear anywhere, and it's a whole new area of clothing, athleisure. So it's tight to the body, right? Again, pockets might be convenient, but that would change the look, the silhouette. So you don't want, there aren't very many athleisure pants, leggings that include pockets. So that's kind of where the assumption is that women will have a purse. it looks better. It just, why do men stuff so much stuff into their pockets?
Yeah.
Why don't they use purses?
Right. Why are people looking at my butt and thinking, wow, he's got a nice contour?
Why are men wearing leggings?
I do. I would. Yeah. That's the thing is I do feel bad for the fact that you can't have utility, like women aren't allowed to have utility. Like, you know, if you want to have your keys and your phone and your everything, to have it on your pocket, which a pocket is a little bit more secure than a purse. A purse, like you said, it could, if somebody sees you with a purse is, you know, purse snatcher. Somebody runs up, grabs a purse, runs off. It's harder to do with the pocket. And so I always felt bad that I could, when I'm wearing these ladies' pants that I would get for a discounted price at the secondhand store, I can't even get, you know, they're sewn on there like they're there, but then you go to put your hand in it and there's nothing there. It's just a seam.
Yes.
I see.
Well, it's because you might have a tummy tuck panel.
Okay.
You know, to help.
Spanx.
It just looks like they're in pockets, but really, there's a piece of spandex there holding your tummy in.
Ah, that's why it looks so good in women's pants. Okay. Good to know.
I don't think that men's clothes are more utilitarian than women's, especially pre 20th century. Actually, say 1920s. You talk about those high collars buttoned to the ties. Tell me,
that's true.
Ties. Business suits.
Yeah.
That's not so practical. But on the flip side, now men have fewer choices in which to express themselves with clothing. Right? I mean, clothing is fun.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of fun. And men are kept out of categories of clothing because they're deemed feminine, female. Women can unisex. When we had unisex, was male, right? It was clothes that men and women could wear. Men can't wear nightgowns or slips or leggings or dresses or skirts. I have a friend with a son who loves to wear kilts, and she told me about this company called Utilikilt. So like utility and kilt, so that there are, and apparently enough men, if the company is still a going concern, right? Enough men buying them, that utilikilt. So kilts that are utilitarian for men. I assume that means with pockets, possibly what we used to call for girls skirts, where they have the short and the skirt built into one. So if it flies up, nobody sees your underpants, right?
I'm a big fan of that, you know, and the utility of the kilt itself is just, you know, hey, when you got to go to the bathroom or whatever, or you get a nice cool breeze, and this is a wonderful idea. The men in Saudi Arabia, traditional men in America look at them people and they say they're wearing dresses and bed sheets and stuff, but, you know, that's just it's probably very freeing to wear a light, you know, silky kind of sheet, and just the airflow you get is just amazing, I'm sure. But we're stuck in our ways, you know, and I'm not the one who says, oh, you men can't wear a dress. I've got friends who aren't gender, differently with their sex or their gender, but they just wear a dress. Guys with big burly beards and hairy chests, and they say, I'm wearing a dress today, bro. I'm like, all right.
Hey, I wish women would do that. I mean, really the only way we're going to end gendered clothing is if more men who identify as men wear something like skirts or dresses. And and they don't have to be frilly or fancy or feminine for men to wear or something like that. But it's not. Men are the ones with power, and women and clothing is still considered frivolous and silly. So men are going to have to take up the dress, the skirts, in order for clothing to become more neutral, at least gender neutral, across at least the Western culture.
That's a good point, because look, we live in the modern world where a lot of manly kind of utilitarian stuff, it's not even necessary, to where we can be frivolous, just as frivolous as you guys, if we wanted to be.
Yeah, why not? And it's, again, clothing can be so much fun. And men used to know that. Men used to have more fun with their clothing than women did, right?
So what's your favorite era for women's dress and your favorite era for men's dress?
That's tough. I think let's see, the second half of the 18th century. I like the powdered wigs. I like the embroidered coats and vests and the stockings and the high-heeled shoes that men wore. It's a very pretty time, and a very, I guess, peacocky time for men's clothing. I'm not a big wig fan. I probably do without the wigs, but since they were wearing them, I'll go along with it. Really, and at the same time, there were men who didn't get into all the frivolity of clothing, but the fact was it existed there for men, and really some of them just reveled in and that. So like that. But like now, for women, they're different because now I can borrow anything that has come prior to now. I can perhaps in fact I do. So I sew. I have some patterns from the 50s and 40s, or some jackets and dresses styles that I really like. They also know their impracticalities. So like, I remember buying this dress. It was from the 50s, and I just loved it. It was a vintage dress, and like the way it was cut was very much of the 50s, where women didn't. Yeah, it was they raise their arms above their heads and just swing. So I went to a dance and happened to dance with a very exuberant partner, and he's swinging this way, and there goes one arm, swings the other way, the other arm goes up, and because the dress wasn't designed to do that. But I can now I can get a pattern like that, and knowing those kinds of shortcomings in earlier fashions, adapt them to how I move in the 21st century. So there's nothing that really isn't available to me that I couldn't, from an earlier time, that I couldn't wear now. And as a woman, there's practically nothing that I can't wear.
I think that's great. That's great. Yeah, because women have taken it as a form of expression and hung on to everything that's ever been cool ever and said, well, I want to put a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And men just get it down to the most basic thing. Now, they might just be wearing a onesie in the future because this is easy for me. I just throw it on. And
once because I wore something like that when I was pregnant. You have to get undressed to go to the bathroom. I'm not a pants. What is it? Flight suit. Overall, coverall. Girl. It's just too much work.
Yeah.
You got to undress several times a day.
Well, I will talk good about the men's fashion of the 1970s and the polyester leisure suits and bell-bottom and platform. Yeah. That was maybe the last really peacocky time for men.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That I with the and platform shoes, and that's when what we like unisex designers were giving men bold patterns to wear. The longer hair that men were wearing.
The beard. Yeah.
That was a good. The leisure suit was more for middle class men. It was sort of like athleisure today. The athleisure for men of the 70s. I remember my uncles wearing that.
Yeah. Popular with like mafia guys and guys that own nightclubs and stuff like this. Yeah. But if it wasn't,
weren't mafia guys, but they were not men who knew how to do this. My dad never wore one. He always had a regular suit. But for men who didn't like to wear suits, that seemed like a comfortable compromise, because it was more like a heavy shirt, the jacket, and the stretch in the pants. The Sansa belt, so you can your waist could come to your feet.
If it wasn't for all the good drugs in the 60s, we might have never had that kind of breakthrough in the 70s.
You're right. It may well have had something to do with it.
But yeah, that was the last really fun time and then now I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find a guy today putting on a leisure suit from the 70s. But you see women of today wearing styles from every decade.
Yeah. And enjoying it. Because men are not allowed. Really, again, going into the 19th century, men's clothes are supposed to be growing more and more practical. It's when, with the start of the factories and the development of middle management, that we see the standardization of the dark suit for men. All men are in their clothes have to show that they're industrious, that they're members of society who are producing, who are not slackers.
It's funny that they kept the tie, because that's the one real frivolous thing that could get caught up in an industrial machine and like kill you is this tie, the men's tie. And I'm just really surprised that out of all the stuff that men kept was this frivolous flap of clothing.
But you're exactly right. That's why you didn't wear. The working class wasn't wearing the tie on the factory floor.
Right.
It's the manager back in the office that the worker comes in to talk to. So the tie wearer is not a risk, but it's a sign, that distinguishes the manager from the worker.
Right. I can't be on the floor because I've got this frivolous, dangerous piece of cloth on my neck. So you go down there because I'm just too good for that.
You, right? Yeah. My job is more important than you. Here's my symbol. Ties for men. You see this more in the UK, where depending on what school you go to, your tie is that color and has that. It's a way also of showing, without having to say I'm, an Eton or a Harvard grad. There it is on just look at that tie and
Yeah. That's the last piece of expression for men, because you could go bolo tie, you could go Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken tie. You know, you had these few different bow tie. I got one of those right here. I almost wore it here.
All kinds of patterns now. I mean, you're right. It is really, you get one with Mickey Mouses all over it. You can get, you know, hand painted ties, or, I mean, some designer ties. I mean, God, you know, I wouldn't pay my whole wardrobe for some exclusive designer necktie, right? Silk and
the politicians and their red power tie as executives, and in the case of Trump, the white power tie.
There was that period where the tie was the same color as the shirt. That was
that's cool.
What?
That's cool.
Yeah. It was a talk show host that sort of popularized that style, so that different fabrics, obviously, because it's tie fabric and the way ties are cut, you could see the tie was visible, but it was the same color. So it's the purple shirt, the purple tie. Yeah.
That's classy.
Men can wear pink shirts now, which was something that they couldn't do for a long time. Even though pink was a man's color long before it's not until the 20th century that it became because pink is a variation on red and royalty and men all. Yep. So what we consider male and female is not, sit down in the tablets of Moses and remain the same till today. High heels were men's before they were women's, because some theories are that they were used at first to for riding horses, to help you keep your foot in the stirrups. And then when the West discovered them, so they came from the East to the West. When the West discovered them, became, of course, it's the elite, because high heels are not practical for working. And then, they made them out of all different kinds of fabrics. There are time periods where platforms, both in the East and the West, were so high and so impossible to walk in that you needed somebody, to put your hand on someone's shoulder on either side to be able to walk. Talking, the elite royalty, how much walking are they going to be doing?
Yeah.
Not much. And so when women first started wearing high heels, it was actually to make their feet look smaller, so that their foot is in a high heel, and they have their long skirt, and only a little tiny toe peeps out from beneath, right? Because you don't see the leg, you don't see the heel, you just see the little tiny toe peeping out. So it's very small and delicate. But also, high heels make it harder for women to walk, and they have to walk a certain way to maintain their balance. And it sort of feeds that myth of, women being kind of flighty, kind of flaky, kind of quirky, because that's how they're moving.
Yeah. I really always thought it was because that's easier to catch them, if they can't walk very fast, and the men could just go,
The men had to give them up when they went to when they began wearing dour, somber clothing. They had to give up their high heels. Cowboys still wear high heels, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you consider. If we're talking stiletto, that's a whole other animal. And God bless those women who can wear those. that takes practice. And some of them get really comfortable with that. Yeah, God bless them.
Walking on a needle.
Exactly. But you're supposed to put the pressure on the ball of your foot. That's supposed to be the track, but yeah.
Many injuries have probably been sustained through stuff like that. I mean, I've worn anything, even a cowboy boot that has the little notch there. At some point, I was like, I can't wear anything like that because I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah, sometimes fashion requires a little suffering. If you,
yeah. The most I'll go is I'll put on this collared shirt, and that's already stuffy enough for me. And,
yeah.
You know, people don't know out there that underneath this nice collared, like Yale man, I'm wearing sweatpants. Totally, and they're not clean.
But again, clothing for most of us, clothing is not about being utilitarian or. But academics, people, historians, academics, people who, consider themselves part of the group that are interested in the life of the mind and don't want to bother with things like clothes. They're above that, right? They're better than that. They're better than having to think about their wardrobe. And I honestly think it's that they're too afraid to make a mistake. And so what they've done is they've said, pshaw to the clothing, to styles. I just wear, what's comfortable because thinking about clothes is not for someone who's thinking high intellectual thoughts.
Sure, but
for those people who are small brained, and that's almost all historians who do with clothing history, who are trained as historians, who do clothing history. Most all of us include somewhere in our writings the sort of insistence that this is not a frivolous topic. Everyone may think it's frivolous, but I'm telling you, it's a serious topic and we're studying. But it's like we're still apologizing in the 21st century for writing about studying clothing as if it's just so much frou-frou.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I have adopted this particular style only because I've gone so long being this pot-smoking, hippie, traveling, hitchhiking musician. And I just, at some point, I realized I'm sticking out too much and I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to be, and so now I think, well, I just want to blend in. I don't want to bother anybody. But I used to wear synthetic pink fur coat, okay? A houndstooth fedora, holding an accordion, and just parading down the streets of San Francisco in turquoise skin-tight jeans. I was that guy. But at some point, you get tired of getting harassed by passersby or whatever. I remember waking up one morning on the streets of San Francisco because I was basically living on the streets at the time, and get up every day and just start playing accordion, try to make a little money. But I woke up one morning wearing a pink fur coat, turquoise pants, funny hat, accordion, and I'm drinking my coffee. I just woke up. I'm real grumpy. And somebody looks at me with this like weird face, like this. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you looking at? And then I look down and I go, oh, yeah, I look like a complete weirdo. And so I slowly, over the course of 10 or 15 years, unpeacocked myself to where I can blend in. And I think, I got to express myself when I can, but I also don't want to get people the wrong impression or whatever.
It's a really interesting story because I just read almost the identical story about a woman who transitioned into a man. She's a lesbian and very masculine looking, but clearly a woman. And she said she just got tired of all the harassment and the bullying that she encountered. So she decided she went to a doctor and read up about what would happen, with hormones. She essentially decided to be a man. It wasn't, she said, because she felt like a man trapped in a woman's body. Just, she couldn't take the harassment anymore, the bullying. And so, still, liked girls. She was worried that testosterone would make her too aggressive, but as long as you get the measures, you can take the right amount of testosterone, the right kind. You take it the same time of day, and she's been living as a man. And the main impetus was exactly for your transition into great clothing. Led her to transition into being a man.
And there's nobody that has it worse than women when it comes to being, picked out in a crowd or whatever. And then if you wear skin tight pants, hey, people are gonna notice. And then if those pants happen to be neon banana yellow, even worse. And for me, it was,
you're a man in a pink jacket. That I think that will get more attention than because that's a man letting go of power, right? I mean, when a man puts on something that we might associate with a woman, or are more willing to accept on a woman than on a man.
Yeah.
That's frightens us, and we need to kill it.
Yeah, beta male, beta. Yeah. I heard it all before, but that was it. My waning belief in humanity was at the same time, I'm not trying to appeal to anybody anymore, because I think now that the internet and all the kind of political discourse that's going on, it's I don't even want to go out there and be noticed by anybody, because there's some good people out there, but a lot of them are just insane. So
yeah.
So I just thought, I'll be cool on the inside.
Over a pink card, I'm going to be over my beliefs that I fix and stuff.
Yeah, the slow process. So I'll ask you another question, because you studied other stuff, and we've been going now for a good hour. So when I ask you,
my God.
I'll ask you a few more, and then
I know, it's great. I love talking about this. You're a good person to talk to.
Yeah, well, you're going to come back and we're going to do it again, so it's fine. So xenophobia, this is a question I had. Xenophobia is the most common root of all societal inequality. Why is this the case, and how can we circumvent these kind of ignorant prejudices? In your opinion, what can we do to avoid xenophobia? I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but.
I actually asked, I told my world history students that it's going to be on this podcast, and this was one of the questions. And so I asked them, what do you think? And they just stared at me. And then when xenophobia rising, I was like, and then they're trying to explain to me what it is that it's like, if it's what you learn when you're young, I'm thinking, why can't we just learn to respect all people? This is sort of what I was saying before about diversity. Everyone is unique and complicated, and I'm human. Everyone is a human being, and if we can always remember that, then how can you treat other people, poorly? How can if everyone is a human being, right? So I'm not sure it's xenophobia as much as the fact that either globally we humanity forgets that we're all human beings, or has such a low view of human beings, right? That I was always when I teach again, when students say, "Oh, it's human nature to be greedy," I'm like, why is that human nature? Why isn't human nature to be generous? Whenever they always want to put the causation down to, well, that's just human nature. But perhaps I have a Pollyannish view of human beings and think that, human nature could be positive. What is it that is driving the negative views more than the positive views of humanity? Yeah. When the women's rights movement first started, it was the woman's, WOMAN, because they believed that all women shared some basic experiences. And so they purposely chose a singular woman as a way of expressing that. Aren't there experiences we all as human beings have? And why do we we may perform gender differently, we may dress gender differently, we may cook different foods, prefer, but we're all human beings. And all human beings are deserving of, respect, good manners. Why is that so hard?
Yeah.
And we couldn't come up with an answer.
Oh.
We couldn't. They kept going. It's what you learn. It's how you're taught. But
there's some truth to that.
When you get grown up, you should be smarter than. If you're a kid, maybe you're afraid because someone looks different. But then you grow up and you say, all right, so they look different, but that's still a person, a human being, deserving of respect. I'll treat them like that, but that doesn't happen. Who said?
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think what I've, in my short time here on Earth, is, we're all born with the same amount of, ability to feel, and the empathy and the greed are both things that we have. But and you're born with it, and you have it in you. You can be capable of empathizing and being greedy, but it's the experiences you have that really sharpen either or, where you either feel like and certain like biological factors which make you a little bit more of an asshole than other people. But other than that, yeah, it's and like you said, the fear of the unknown is saying, well, I don't know him, but if you have the experience and you take the time and you go meet that person, then you have a chance at least. But I've been greedy. But I've also been nice. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also asked them if I couldn't think of a better term. I said, well, what about cultural appropriation? I'm not sure cultural appropriation is necessarily a bad thing. Now, my students are very mixed in terms of class and racial makeup. So I'm not talking a room full of white kids. But they did not like what I had to say about cultural appropriation. I'm like, well, I don't mean claiming something from another culture, but maybe it's cultural appreciation rather than appropriation. But I feel like there's even a fear around cultural appreciation that it could be interpreted as cultural appropriation. I remember the movie 10 with Bo Derek and her cornrows. That I don't know if you're familiar with.
I know Bo Derek.
And the movie 10 is what shot her, I think, to fame, or at least to mainstream audiences. And she had these cornrows. And so I said, well, can white women wear cornrows to my students? They're like, no way. No. That's, only black women can wear cornrows. But it's like, what if you really, really like them and really, nope.
That's fine. It's fine. It's only when you go and ask, hey, where did you pick that style up from? And say, no, white people made it up. That's when you go wrong. That's when you lie. It's like Elvis when he started playing black music. As soon as you pretend like white people invented rock and roll, you're kind of throwing dirt on that culture. But if you like it, and then you're appreciating it. So it's like, I guess it's a fine line between appreciation and appropriation.
Yeah, well, sure. I guess it's not always clear to me what that line is. So again, we go back to women wearing pants. One, and this is culturally incorrect, but it's the 19th century. And people are saying women can't wear pants because pants are only for men. So some women say, hey, look at the Middle East. What do you think those women in the harems are wearing? And you think those women in the harems have power? They have less power than we do. And they have fewer rights than we do. We're wearing those pants, not men's pants. We're wearing harem pants, powerless pants. Honestly, and it's possible that they did imitate those styles that were born in the Middle East because they were more feminine than men's trousers. But is that appropriation? No, is that?
Why can't it's just
women in pants?
It's the same as saying I want to go out and I want to eat some Chinese food. We say, oh, you can't do that because you're not Chinese.
Right.
Why can't you enjoy the things that the other people on earth are enjoying? That's, But then there's, you don't want to come out Al Jolson and do blackface and stuff like this, but.
Right. Although I have to tell you, I watched Neil Diamond's Jazz Singer. Are you familiar with that?
I know it, but I never saw it.
It's a good movie to fast forward through some parts, but he performs blackface with this black music group. One of their members doesn't show up, and they're performing in a black club, and they need him to fill in. And so I can't remember if he does it or if they put the makeup on him. But it's interesting.
Rides the line. That sounds like a line right there.
It really, yeah. Because he's clearly friends with these black men. It's not. I know that minstrelsy was a way of humiliating black people, but that's not the context in which Neil Diamond does it. But it's a strange little movie.
Yeah. You have to be careful when you start perpetuating stereotypes, because there could be so much hate there, or so much where you're cementing in some bad habits or bad reputation. But Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, they redid The Wizard of Oz. What did they call it? They call it The
Wiz.
The Wiz.
The Wiz.
Right.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
But stereo. I drag queens sort of satirizing, yet satirizing women, the extreme of female styles, but loving women, appreciating women at the same time that they're taking these, this femininity up and over the top. It's hard to know what to think about that.
Yeah, sure. That's almost stereotyping, cementing in stereotypical women's stuff, where I really think that women don't necessarily have to be defined by nails and wigs and sequins and stuff like this.
Right, exactly, yeah. Or all giggly. Some of these
drag queens are almost like
women that
drag queens are like the blackface of women,
Right. That's been argued, but the big key is that blackface really was meant to denigrate black people. Whereas I think most drag queens aren't trying to humiliate women. I think they really love at least this aspect of womanhood, this sort of, perhaps because there's no equivalent anymore in manhood, right? No opportunity to really be frivolous, or maybe join the circus. You can, wear sparkly things.
Well, yeah, Al Jolson didn't do it because he preferred to be black. Drag queens are probably more likely to have the transgender thing and say, I feel good when I do this. I feel more natural when I do this. And I appreciate the femininity of it.
Yeah.
But how over the top it is sometimes it's just, it's amazing.
That's it. Exactly. It's like, when was the last time you saw a woman in real life? Like
if they're done up a little too nice, then I go, is that a man? Is that a man in drag? Probably. Could be. Not, and I love you. I'm friends with John Waters and, of course, the Great Divine and all these wonderful, the wonderful heritage of drag queens. Like, more power to you.
And we have to remember that in theater, the history of men playing women goes all the way back to the ancients, because women weren't allowed to be on the stage. So men have been doing this forever.
And nobody in the ancient times would say, well, that guy's a little fruity or whatever. That was just had to be the way it was, Yeah. Well, that's how it goes.
Oh, you don't know that? Well, no, we do. No, we don't.
A little bit. We know a little bit about it, but we will never know the full truth.
Yeah. There was some fruit. There was some stuff going on backstage, but that's okay.
Yeah. Right. Sexuality is this spectrum I enjoy. I'll dabble in it. I'll put my feet in any part of the pool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you talk about so I teach LGBTQ history. I was debating about whether or not to include so it's world history, LGBTQ world history from ancients to the present, and so you can't do it chronologically. I chose to do it around different types of LGBTQ sexuality, and one being difference in ages. And so for most of history, we know more about men we would call gay than we know about women we might call lesbians. And so with my students was debating, how do we deal with young men, boys, and men, right? Because that was a practice in ancient Greece. Is something that continues to color people's perceptions of gay men today. There's this fear that they're all pedophiles, ready to groom and turn boys into gay men. And should that history be included in LGBTQ history, or is that somehow separate, different from LGBTQ history? Is identity versus acts, right? Do we make a distinction? And we didn't come to any, some students didn't want anything approaching a hint of pedophilia included in an LGBTQ history.
Well,
we wanted it to be positive and
sure, and that's fine and everything, but part of history is studying the ugly parts too. But this has so less to do with homosexuality. It has everything to do with our lust for young flesh. And it doesn't, you can be heterosexual and still be grooming young people. And this happens all the time. Pedophilia is not, not just one sexual orientation.
Right,
It's
right.
I see people everywhere, over the spectrum, from conservative politicians who want a young, tight piece of ass to, friends of mine who also like young boys or men who like young boys. So that's just
right.
different.
No, that's a good point. Young flesh and sort of that innocence and attractiveness
and a stamina and vitality.
And the reason, again, worth pointing out is that we know so much less about what women were doing sexually, for most of history than we know about what men were doing. Because of record keeping and because unless a penis was present, it wasn't necessarily considered sex, right? So, who knows what kind of orgies women were having, but there was no penis there, then it wasn't sex.
Yeah. The men were the only ones allowed to be literate enough to record history.
Mm-hmm.
It was happening. Nothing is more primal and primitive than people thrusting their genitals upon each other for a good time. It's just something that happens without any training or education. So you can just assume.
All you have to do is.
And it's bestiality too. I mean, of course, anything warm and moving is probably fair game for people in the ancient world to say, yeah, all right.
Not even ancient. I remember reading this case in Puritan New England about the boy and the sheep he was doing it with, both being brought into court. And I can't remember what the boy's sentence was, but the sheep was hung. You know,
As an animal rights activist, that makes me upset. The sheep did.
Part of it was they didn't understand, how babies were made, and they were afraid a beast could be born of the.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mixing the.
There was a story not too long ago, 10 years ago or something, about in Colombia. There's a small section of Colombia where it's a coming of age ritual for a young man that he has to have sex with a donkey before he can have a woman. And this is going on in modern day. And it's only this one specific part of Colombia. And you ask the young girls of that country, and they say, will you sleep with a young man if he hasn't been with a donkey before? She said, no way. No way. He doesn't know what he's doing. If he's never had a donkey, he's not allowed with me.
Well, what do you think having sex with assuming that means the young boy penetrates the donkey and is not penetrated by the donkey? Penetration is
No. It's symbolizing the traditional kind of man, and then like he's practicing and he's showing that he can, do his manly business and to another.
Subdue the donkey so that he can do his business.
Yeah. Practice round.
That's interesting. When one of my pants wearing groups was the Oneida a community in upstate New York, the Oneida silverware people. Their leader had the older women in the community teach the boys. They had a birth control method similar to withdrawal, but not quite. It's called, I was about to say incontinence, but that's not it. It's a different thing. I saw it. But the idea was that with withdrawal, you can ejaculate after you withdraw. But with their birth control method, as a way of practicing total control over one's body, you would not ejaculate afterwards, right? So older women, young boys, because it's postmenopausal women, right? So there's no fear of pregnancy, because in the beginning they couldn't have. They were just managing to survive. They didn't want lots of babies. But Father Noyes, the leader of the group, he was in charge of teaching all the girls.
Nice.
With a method. And he's eventually run out of the United States. He ran off to Canada, and rather than face charges of sexual abuse in the United States. But how you it's interesting, even in the mid-19th century, right? In the United States, there were groups that were talking about sex, practicing sex, thinking about not having babies.
There's all this talk. There's all this talk today about this, pedophilia and grooming and sexual perversion and stuff like this. And I just think these are the people who are pro-violence, pro-suffering, pro-pain, pro-hate, and they're worried about what kind of pleasure. And I think when it comes to bestiality, it's like, dude, if you want to jack off a horse, go to town. As long as that horse is having a great time, do it. But don't spew hate. Those talk about murder and this is American values, is where we will show a movie on TV and we'll show somebody's head just get decapitated, blood flying everywhere. That's fine. Yeah. But if you show a nipple, you got hell to pay. This makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I remember it was the Thornbirds, which was this is going all the way back to the early 80s. The Thornbirds, was it Richard Chamberlain? Was the actor? He was in shadow. I mean, this was like newspapers were covering it because it was going to be full nudity. He was going to be naked on TV. But he was in the shadows. Now I can't remember if it was just his butt or if he was, it's how long that was, or if he was at an angle so you kind of got the outline of his penis, not erect. That would have been too much. But it was just, it was shocking. It was like shocking. Everyone, no, I can't believe you're doing this. Oh, you can't do this on network TV. But the first clear sight of a butt was a cop TV show, like Miami Vice or something.
Don Johnson's
Maybe,
butt.
Johnson's.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't think it was John. It was the other one.
21 Jump Street.
He had red hair. He had red hair. The other
the other guy.
That.
Yeah.
I think I was talking about butts.
Oh yeah, we're talking about big, nice, juicy butts. It's different. It's different here in Germany and stuff. We have the first sex shop that opened in the entire world was like a German lady in the early 20th century, like after World War II. She opened up the first sex shop, and then on Danish TV, Swedish TV, they show everything. They don't really. I don't think it's like hardcore porno, but they don't have the same moral Puritan disposition we do.
Well, that I think that German lady who opened the first sex shop, one of her dolls was the precursor to Barbie. Barbie was a German sex doll before she was remade into a girl's fashion doll.
They took the nipples and the vagina off.
I remember as a kid, a friend's parents had in their parents' bathroom had these little figurines, but they looked like dolls, like naked, but with these very flimsy negligees on, which I thought was kind of weird for grown-ups to have. But then when I heard later in life, when I heard that Barbie had been a sex doll, I thought about those little figurines that were in my friend's parents' bathroom, and it made sense because she kind of did. They kind of did look like Barbie, although they were clothes, you couldn't move them or anything. They were just like, but they had very pronounced breasts and pouty lips, and you can see somebody taking a doll like that. Because I don't think the sex doll had working parts. I think she was just more exaggerated figure.
Sure. And
it's scantily clad.
Scantily clad. If you wanted to get young boys to play with Barbies, all you got to do is make them a little bit bigger. Yeah.
And that they've really made advances when it comes to sex dolls.
Oh God! So I've seen.
Yeah. I haven't done any real research on that, but they say that young people are having less sex now than back. Certainly my generation. They're doing so much more of their living online than these real people.
That's what I've seen. This is a big issue with young people right now, is what they call incels, which are young men that can't find a sexual partner. And then women also, or whatever, more selective. And so everybody's having less sex, but everybody's hunched over the computer. And I've seen these devices. I don't know, there's like the fleshlight and the things like this, but it's like some kind of, turbine that you stick your dick in, and it's supposed to do the work for you. It's like, there's no wonder that men can't find a mate if you're opting to let a robot get you off. And I don't know what the future holds for these poor people that just,
Yeah. Although women have vibrators for years, that it's only fair that men have men.
That's true. But the vibrator has always been unisex in some way, where anybody who likes a good vibration. But this specific device is only for one long kind of member to go in so. But it's deeper than that. There's some kind of cultural thing, technological thing that's keeping these poor people, and a lot of people think it has to do with. What is it? The Tinder. The kids are doing the Tinder where they just get on the app and they say, oh, fuck her. And they just swipe left and right on who they think is attractive. And it's sort of making the process, I'm the type of person, we discussed before, like I'm attracted to people who got a big juicy brain and like to talk and I have a social connection to, not necessarily what do they look like. It's a nice face, ugly face. It's not important to me.
Well, I found when I was dating between husbands that men who I thought looked really attractive could open their mouths and suddenly become quite unattractive. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm fortunate that although I did online dating. It was pre Tinder, pre those quick apps, and that really must affect self-esteem so much.
The early days of computer dating, they tried to match you up based on your common interests or something. And then you would go on a date with somebody and you'd go out to dinner and you'd say, okay, you look handsome. Say something. Let me hear you talk.
Yeah. It's, Tinder is the one that's specifically about hooking up for sex.
Yeah.
Not for a partner.
Yeah, and I guess that commodifies it to an extent where it's just not. It's just, I don't know. It's more primitive in some way, but I'm glad that I was just under the cutoff before everything went to hell, and I was able to find somebody that I could actually not only find attractive, but talk to and spend extra, the time after, have good sex. But then after the fact, you want to go get something to eat? You want to, play a game? You want to have a conversation?
As I was aging out of online dating, I noticed that more and more there were photographers who would, specifically for online dating, or people who do your makeup specifically, so that the pictures that you presented online, or then when they started adding video, your videos online were professionally done. They weren't, selfies and something your kid took.
That's already was on a bad way, I guess, where we're like, okay, let's just get it down to a look in a video or a look in a picture, and then that's the hook. The hook shouldn't be the image, right? It should be, especially if you're going for a long-term thing. But yeah, I mean, even going for a quick hookup, if the person afterwards was just a racist or just unbelievably stupid or vapid, I'd say, this is not, turns me off.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So, well, in some ways, we have liberated sexuality. In other ways, being able to act or use that liberation has been curtailed by the very technology that opened it up. Right. I mean, it certainly made a bigger pool of people available to meet, but the actual meeting seems to be taking place less.
Yeah. It says like the misrepresentation of who we are has just grown so much. And then you go on a date with somebody and they go, oh, this person sneezed during dinner. I know that there's millions of other people out there. I'll just, keep, everybody thinks that there's a better option.
Exactly. So there's somebody more beautiful, more attractive, more richer. I'm not going to settle for someone who's just attractive. I want someone who's gorgeous.
Right.
Or I want some of that tight young flesh.
Right. That too. I'll trade it all for whatever is behind door number 3. And then you keep finding everything behind door number 3 is not really any better. Mm-hmm. And also like the self-esteem thing. It's like, what do you think you really deserve? Are you so egotistical that you think you deserve the very best? It's like, romance for me has always been about building something together and compromising rather than assuming that love at first sight is like a real thing and like people should just love me for who I am. Like that is such the wrong idea, I think.
And love me for no matter what. That's your parents' job.
Right. That's your parents' job. Your spouse or your lover should challenge you constantly. That's what I think. They should constantly be not making you change, but giving you the opportunity to change who you are in a good way.
People aren't stagnant. People do change. You no longer wear pink fuzzy coats. And what if that was the only thing, that was keeping you together?
Yeah, could be. And you have to weigh it all as you go and say, well, what am I willing to give up and what am I willing to do? And then you decide if these habits are good or whatever. But everybody deserves to have a companion, but not you can't assume that everybody's just going to love you for all your horrible, horrible flaws.
Yeah. Sexuality and love too. Where do they intersect, right? Can you so we're talking Tinder is all about acting on physical urges, right? Attractiveness. If was it more like I need sex, and is that the one where people in the immediate vicinity who also need sex, and we'll just come together and have sex and then go our ways. So it's different than looking for partner. Right? Just, does it really matter what the other person looks like if you really just need sex right now?
I guess it depends on what you consider attractive. Like, a pretty face is nice. But in order and sexuality should be tied to some kind of also like a mental kind of attraction. Like, why do we find a certain face attractive? It has everything to do with our minds, not our bodies. I mean, I could hump a couch cushion and achieve climax, but
right. So why go on Tinder? Just hump the sofa.
Right. Don't need consent. Hey there, sofa. Don't gotta buy the sofa dinner, or anything. Well, I guess you don't need to do that on Tinder either. But I think where we're going is that in the future you'll just walk down the street and there will just be people having sex on the street corner that have just met each other, who can't even go to a place, but they'll just be fornicating. And then as they're doing it, they're both on their phones getting ready for the next thing or whatever.
That's even sadder than them doing it on the corner.
Yeah. The thought that they're just swiping to the next person. Like, yeah, this guy's all right. And, but
now that picture is one I'm not going to be able to, it's not them on the corner, but any, when I see my students who tell me they only put their phone down when they're sleeping, I think now I'm going to think, even when they're having sex, are they like texting and not necessarily looking for another partner, but checking to see how many hits their Instagram or their Twitter, how many likes they got?
Yeah. That has taken the whole idea of narcissism and just put it into overdrive, like giving the people the ability to, constantly put themselves out there and try to craft an image out of who they are. It's like, especially young people that need their existence validated. And now I really steer clear from people on the internet who take excessive pictures of themselves. I think this is a mental illness. Like, you really need people to tell you that you're great and that you look great and that you're fine. Like, I'm an adult. I'm over it. I don't care. Like, I look the way I look. I sound the way I sound. I'm not out to validate my own existence anymore. And it's like, what is important to you? And for a lot of young people, it's to look good. Nothing more. Not to be intelligent or nice or charitable or generous. It's just, do I look sexually attractive and, wealthy or whatever, That's in and of itself probably to blame for a lot of these issues too. Yeah. I can't imagine you're teaching young people too. And that's just, I feel so bad for young people. I see them all the time clutching the phone everywhere they go. They're like,
it's the lights. Remember a student telling me, like, if she didn't get 100 likes in a certain amount of time, just felt really bad. When she would put usually selfie, and as someone who doesn't particularly care to be photographed, I've never really gotten the whole selfie thing. In fact, the more this stuff explodes and the more the government shows it can't be trusted, the less I want to be visible on the internet and social media, because why do you want that much information about you out there? People, they're crazy people out there.
Yeah. I guess the young people haven't been through life and they haven't been screwed over a number of times and realized that humanity isn't something that you need to get the attention of. Like, it's, for me, like I told you, I stopped wearing the pink coat because I thought, I don't want these people to see me. I'm scared to death of these people. If there's anybody I want to attract, it's smart, empathetic people, and that's it. I don't care what you look like. If you're smart, empathetic, And I'm doing this podcast, and that was a big step for me because here I am. We'll broadcast our mugs out there. But I had apprehension about it. But as long as it's dry and boring, like we're having a philosophical discussion right now, all the bad people won't tune in. They'll be like, this is boring.
Yeah.
So it'll chase away all the bad people, hopefully. He's using too many big words.
Can't use big words, but we're talking about fun stuff, gender and sex and clothing. You don't need big words to talk about that. Yeah. The great topics.
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, I didn't care at all whether or not people, like, I do sometimes periodically get caught up in, well, how many people saw the video? And then you imagine, 300 people enjoyed this talk to this degree or whatever. But then it always comes back to the fact that I don't care. I'm doing this because I like talking to people and I miss it. And I don't want to leave my house, but I still want to communicate with good people. And so now I'm handpicking people out there that I think, oh, I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to you. And I'm doing it.
Why don't you leave your house?
What's that?
Why don't you want to leave your house?
Well, I spent too many years on the streets out in public. And I just think that I've realized there is great swaths of people who just don't get it. Or, we see how many people are racist, xenophobic, into reactionary politics on the right and the left, people who just want to argue. But really, I lived as the homeless romantic. That's the name of the podcast. It's not a joke. It was a lifestyle that I lived, slept behind dumpsters, hitchhiked across America. I know that the kindness of humanity is fleeting and that it exists only when the right thing is put in front of somebody to do, where they can put the thing in okay, I can help you if you're stuck and I can drive you here. But our primitive urges to be egotistical or to be selfish always poke their heads up. And I always meet people who's, especially with artists, it was like always like me. And then other people were just dangerously stupid or dangerously, they don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about your dog. They don't care about your safety. And I know that there's some things I can't unknow about that. And another thing is the police. I'm scared to death of the police. I hate the police. I've had run-ins with the police. This is a certain kind of person who's out in the world, who's got the job because, I can get a gun and I can be an authority figure. Yeah. It poisons their mind and stuff. And we can go on like politicians, and they're saying we're going to do the climate change thing when they're not doing the climate change thing. They're dragging their feet. Capitalism commodifies everything. And then now I've become vegan in the last few years, where I've always really cared about animals, but then knowing that most people think that animals' lives are lesser. I don't share that belief. I think that that's egregious, So humanity has become this scary thing where I try to avoid. And I'm only doing this in the safety of my home, picking out people who I think, okay, I want to make friends with the best people, the smart people, the empathetic people, the interesting people. And fuck everybody else, And you make the cut. You're awesome.
All right. Thank you. I made it feel honored. But you're in Germany, and it seems to me like you would want to. You explored the U.S. Don't you want to explore this country? Yeah, Germany.
I did. When I first showed up, I would hitchhike. I hitchhiked to Sweden, and I went to Italy, and I went here and there, and we had these kind of experiences and stuff. But really, and I don't have any money. When you don't have any money, traveling and adventuring and everything, it takes away all the comfort out of your life, and the unpredictability of traveling. I did it for 15 years. 15 years from the time I was 21. I left home, started thumbing my way across the world. Not only that, I went to Mexico in 2012. I took a car that started with a screwdriver, really piece of shit car, and drove it over the border of Mexico and took 6 months to drive all the way to Guatemala. And I saw a guy get murdered. I got desperately ill. I got robbed by the police several times. It was insane. And I just realized that there, the comfort and the empathy in the world is it's either here or there. You could get lucky or you could get very unlucky. Yeah. And when you try to rein in unpredictability, you got to rein it in. You got to and this is what it's like getting old, I think, is you try to cast out all the bullshit and try to keep the stuff that's simple and good, and get to the essence of life. What are the good things in life and everything else? And a lot of the time going out to a restaurant or going out to an amusement park or a ball game or something, or going bungee jumping, these are novelties. These are novelties and unnecessary risks that no longer feed my soul and only kind of stress me out. Not to mention that restaurant food isn't that good. Like I noticed, unless you go to a really nice place and pay a lot of money and get an artisanal kind of crafted meal, if I go home and I cook for myself, it's always better. It's always better if I put my lips. So yeah, it's kind of sad in a way, right? That I've come to this point. And if I ever get money, like if I had 30 grand or something, I'd go on vacation right now. I'd go to the beach. It's freezing here right now. But, until I can.
You would do something that predictability. It wouldn't be with your thumb out. You would go to a hotel that there would be a bed without bed bugs, and they would. But so it's but what risks you want to take? That's interesting. And you probably, when you were summing your way across the U.S. and Europe, probably the very, very tail end of when one could get away with doing that. I can't imagine. I would think that even today, with the growing hostility, that it would be even much harder to live that kind of, on the whatever the day brings kind of. Yeah. It can be much harder to do that today.
Yeah. But at the same time,
fewer people are willing to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think more people should. Because especially with the vitriol that's on the internet, it's like if you went out today and hitchhiked across America, you'd probably find that it's not as bad as you think.
I think you would do that without a phone? Could you do it without a phone? If you were doing it in 2012, when did phones?
Yeah, no, I did not have a phone. So my first time in New York City, first of all, we panhandled our gasoline to get everywhere we went. So we would stop at gas stations with a little jug and ask people, hey, can you spare a squirt of gas? We're on an adventure. We're trying to get to New York City. And so we're already like broke and we don't have it. And people would give us a little gas and we'd get on our way. When I got to New York City, no phone, no GPS. I had a map, full map from the 1970s that was completely out of date. And, I spent at least 2 weeks just completely lost, got pulled over by the police and they go, are you drunk? And it's like, no, I'm just from out of town. I have no idea what I'm doing and how to get around. But it was hard. It was really hard to know where I was going. And at some point I had I think it was an iPad that somebody had gifted to us and we had some. But you could bring up the GPS stuff, but then if you close the program, that it would, erase itself. And that was the first time that we could kind of know where we were going. Other than that, it was like old school. You were looking at the signs. Oh, 30 miles to Austin. We're almost there. Okay. But yeah, no, kids today, they could do it, but I think, I think the fact that they do look on the internet and they do see all the anger and hate that most people would think, oh, I can't do this. But dude, people are doing it still. I've got young people, friends of mine who are still making their way here and there. I got a friend right now, my friend Scotty. He's in Ukraine right now for no reason other than to like help. He's a young guy, young, cute, blonde kid from Alabama who, this is a long story, but I'll tell you if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
I met him in Colorado. He was just at a library. He was also hitchhiking across America. We invited him to the house we were staying, became friends. We got kicked out of the house we were staying. I invited him to California to some friends of mine. We grew weed. I let him, invited him to these people, introduced him. He ended up growing weed there for a few years. And then he went to Mexico and started working at an animal shelter. So he's just like this really good spirited young man. And he's currently in Ukraine and he's rescuing animals from the front lines of the war.
Oh, wow.
Somebody who I'm extremely proud of. But when I first met him, he was very kind of a snotty young kid. And he would say, my yogurt was in the fridge. Who ate my yogurt? And I was like, look, there are bigger things in the world than your freaking yogurt, young man. And he was the only young man who would like listen to me yell at him and go, yeah, maybe you're right. You're right. There's bigger problems in the world. And then, so we've always remained friends after that. But, so there are still individuals out there who are like making adventure happen. And so, but I'm like 37, 38 now. I forget, but, I'm old. I'm done. I'm toast. But, one day yeah, right. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Doesn't seem like it.
Well, as my daughter says, Mom, you're a really good person.
You are.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it again. I'll cut you loose. This is 2 hours. This is one of my longest because I really like you. I like talking with you.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while. I see to finish grading, students are starting to say, "Where's my grade?"
Yeah.
That's what they're worried about. And I got so fed up with the songs in one of my classes this semester. I had a bunch of assignments online, and I said to them, "Look, I want to judge you. It's clear you don't want to." It was a world history survey. It's clear you don't want to be here because they're all like this, right? In the phones. 75 minutes. If you can't give me 75 minutes, twice a week with your phones packed away. Those of you who want to be here and want to engage in conversation, you can stay. The rest of you, again, no judgment. This is how your grade will be calculated. You don't have to come anymore. Just, complete these online assignments on time and, check off the box because that's why you're here. And it really hurts me. And I find it quite humiliating to come to this class and have you essentially tell me what I do doesn't matter because you're on your phones. And so, the classes were about 30 each. I expected the next day to show up and there would be 2 people if I was lucky. Both classes, I did 2 world history classes. Both classes, I had about 6 students. One 8, one had 8, one had about 6. But the semester ended on a much better note than, we had good conversation. We discussed, issues that were important to them, important to me. And all those other people who were dragging me down, fine. Just do it on the internet. And it was, I'm not sure how, my bosses, would take it, but, it worked for me and it worked for the kids in the class.
Aren't they paying for the education too?
I think they're paying for the grade. And all they have to do is show up. I think that the other thing I cut a lot of slack, especially at the beginning of the semester, because these are kids who were, for the last 2 years, remote high school, right? So they've, and in fact, the students who decided to stay, I asked them why, they're like, the last 2 years have been remote. I just can't take it anymore. I need to be around people. So I think that some students have just stopped needing to be around people. And
that's strange. That's strange for me because I don't want to be physically in public, but I still really need the like what we're doing right now is conversating with people.
Yeah.
I need it absolutely.
And they may turn on, engage when they're in classes that they see as directly relevant to their major. Even the university administration is really only valuing those majors that lead directly to jobs. So, health studies, you can be an administrator and, a medical office. Nursing, you can be a nurse. Accounting, you can be an accountant. And so, like I said, they feel like they have to be here, check off the box.
What happened?
But that doesn't mean they have to like it.
What happened to being interested in something because it's interesting?
But supposedly that's what the core curriculum is supposed to be about, right? Introducing you to new ideas, new things, new ways of thinking, different ways of thinking or looking at the world. But they just see it as hoops that they have to jump through. And
how long have you been teaching?
Since even longer than that. Since 1995, yeah. So, students have changed, but I've also changed, right? And the distance between students and me has also changed, right? So I was closer to their age, and they, as the generations change and moving further, so now there are more years between us, and sometimes just harder to find a place of a connection. Like, I remember having one phone in the family, right? One phone plugged into a wall.
Yeah.
Having my youngest, I have a 12-year-old, or 13, he likes me to tell the stories about having to get up out of your chair and go turn the TV.
I remember that.
You had to get up out of your chair to change the chair. Like, that's an early advertisement chair.
Not only that, but it was like this hard dial that you could hear. You could go click, 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 click. I love that.
Like another dial around it that kind of flies through, kind of like a radio, right? So during the
and then on the back, you had the vertical hold and the horizontal hold where you could get the picture to go. I only know that because my family was incredibly poor and had TVs from the 70s,
Yeah. We, Steve, when I can't remember when we got our first color TV, but I know it was a hand-me-down from my grandparents, and I remember it was like furniture.
Yeah,
the TV was this big, solid, like a dress.
Didn't it come encased in wood?
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss that. I actually miss that. We were so stupid and we were so happy.
We were, some things we were happy about. It's also the time when, I very much the Cold War. My dad was in the service, in the Navy. And so I remember that as a kid lying out on the grass and looking up at the sky and wondering if Russian satellites were going by, spying. And really being afraid of, the bomb dropping. That was, it was a real, fear that, I don't know if it was more tangible because my father was in the, service, but it felt like it could happen at any time.
Yeah, well, you don't seem as old as the McCarthy era, but I guess that extended all the way up into the 70s and stuff. But like you're gonna get under your desk and in school and stuff. We did that too. You're gonna withstand a nuclear blast by getting under your desk.
Yeah. Well, we went into we actually had a gym with showers. We would go into the showers and the gym, and because it was inside, no windows.
Good way to go, I guess.
Yeah, I guess better than, who knows? We didn't go, so that's a blessing. But I think what I've read is that information now is changing so quickly and coming at us so quickly that our brain just really can't keep up. And so if there's anything better about earlier, when I was young, it's that there seemed to be a finite amount that you could know, or finite amount of places you can look. Whereas now, can you imagine being a historian of Donald Trump or Biden? I mean, where do you even begin? Can you imagine the massive amounts of information that's stored everywhere? I hope they keep the technology able to access.
Yeah, that too.
Print it out.
Well, I'll never have to buy a movie or I won't have to buy a CD or a movie anymore. There's so much free stuff to do. I'm happy with that. But people still go out and still buy movies and stuff. That's really perplexing to me because when I was a kid, you'd go to the store, you'd buy a VHS movie for whatever, $30, $40, and then and then that's it. And then you watch that movie over and over and over. Or you'd rent it and then you watch it 4 times before you return it, get your money's worth.
Exactly. Or even television, how sometimes you might plan aspects of your life around a particular show because if you missed it,
that was it.
You couldn't stream it. You have to wait until the rerun period if that episode showed up.
Yeah.
And so you might, got to be home for the streets of San Francisco or got to be home for Star Trek.
Right.
But because if I miss it, it's important. I'm going to miss this part of the story.
Yeah.
Or I was telling them about, my students about, The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz was a yearly event. And the first time I saw it on a color television, wow, blew me away. It's not as effective.
I still love The Wizard of Oz.
They would show it with one commercial intermission. And so one night out of the year, how many of us shared in that same experience at that same time. Wizard of Oz around the United States.
Yeah.
What experiences do we share as a,
that's the other thing. Yeah, that's the idea, is that we don't have any collective thing anymore. Like they used to show movies on a nationwide syndicated NBC affiliate, and everybody in the country would be watching this one movie at the same time, or show at the same time. That was the collective consciousness that was the glue and the cohesion of society that we don't have anymore. People are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I miss that. Yeah. Every year on the radio in my local hometown in Denver, they would play Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant on Thanksgiving. And it's just the greatest song ever. It's this long-winded song.
I love
Okay, all right. Thank you. And that traditions like that, even though I'm not big on corporate media and stuff, it's like, this is another reason why society is so disjointed and everybody has all these other different opinions than you, is because we don't share a collective culture anymore. It's just everybody's here and there.
This is one of the things at the end of the LGBTQ class we looked at is a commercialization of pride parades. Corporations, there's the World Pride. Can't remember the World Pride Corporation. They go to different countries and get it. And they have sponsors like you can only hand out Trojan condoms at the Pride Parade because Trojan is an official sponsor, and things like that. It's not the spontaneous or the grassroots or the people, it's organized. It's not that, let's face it, when you throw together a parade of, a bunch of people, it's not as glamorous as, the corporations coming in with their big floats in there, everything nicely manicured and, well set up. The music playing just so, having, been in high school homecoming parades and stuff like that. It's just like, so homemade.
Yeah.
But that was that's what the Pride parades were. And now, the special T-shirt or this flag this year, or, so on the one hand, it's good that, corporations have recognized the buying power of the gay population. On the other hand,
it's because it's economically viable for you to go after that demographic or whatever. And it's like, anytime that there's the show of money and show of corporate power, it ruins everything. Capitalism is so heartless. Doesn't care really about gay pride. It cares about influencing people to buy more shit. That's
exactly. Shit with rainbows on it. So if you have the non-rainbow one and the one with the rainbow, well, it's like first notice is happening with breast cancer awareness. It's like the pink ribbon. It's like, and then the pink football player uniforms and the pink, chocolate bars and the pink cookies and the pink, and 10% of profits go to really
morality capitalism.
Really, suddenly it's cool to support breast cancer awareness. So I want a pink ribbon and.
This is like when Yoplait started putting pink labels on the top of their little yogurts.
Oh, right.
But now we're finding out that microplastics, which is what these fucking things come in, cause breast cancer. So you're raising breast cancer awareness by giving people a product that might actually give them breast cancer. Really, really nice guys. They don't give a. They don't care.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the gay pride. our advertisement will have a big rainbow flag, but our corporate policy doesn't promote or benefit gay charities or promote gay awareness or anything. But please buy our stuff because we put a rainbow on our product.
Yeah.
And some of those rainbows are just, is it McDonald's or Burger King? Some two bottoms or two tops. Yeah.
I think the worst is when they use humor too. When they use humor to get us to buy, it really irks me because I'll laugh because I like funny shit. But God damn it,
Yeah.
it got me again. That's funny. I'm not even gonna lie. That's hilarious. Two bottoms, two tops. Get the fuck out of here. That's
The buns, right? You got it?
Yeah. I can only assume. Jesus Christ. Well, we've got plenty to talk about next time, I guess.
Certainly will. So I will bid you adieu and go grade those students who are worthy of being graded.
Don't let these students get to you, these bastards. Just give them all B's and just send them on their way.
Then at the new school, there was a strike, and all the students want their tuition back, and they all want A's for the classes that they didn't attend.
The level of entitlement. Okay. Buying your grade, folks. Just buy your grade.
Yes, exactly.
What do you think you are?
I'm bribable. Nobody's given me 1,000, 50,000. I'll take it.
Yeah, come on to my office.
If I split it with the president of the university, I'd probably get away with it.
Yeah. I've heard of it happening, so it's not even a thing.
Yeah. So it was lovely, Chris. Thank you.
Well, we'll let Professor Gayle V. Fischer, Professor of History, Salem University, Salem State University in Mass. Wonderful human being. We're going to have her back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
We didn't even get to cover most of the topics that I had written down.
Know, we didn't. And I have lots of answers, so we'll talk again.
All right, deal. All right, wave goodbye to everybody out there first. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.